Hello everyone, Isha here. The first race of the 2024 Formula One season has finally happened in Bahrain. Now, there's a lot to talk about from today. It was certainly an interesting race if you take out the fact that Max Verstappen won once again, which just seems like a continuation of the past 2 years. But other than that, it was quite interesting. So I'll talk a little bit about the different teams I want to cover, and then I'll talk a little bit about next race weekend, which is going to be in Saudi Arabia. So starting off with Red Bull, repeat of 2023, pretty much so. And Max Verstappen, is he going to be crowned world champion at the end of the season? I think so. I mean, you could say that, oh, maybe there's a possibility he might not. The car might not work out. The other teams might catch up, but it's not happening. I mean, just alone today, in the first race of the season, at one point he was 40 seconds ahead of whoever was in second place. So that should let you know that nobody else is catching up to him. Not even his own teammate who finished in second. Sergio Perez finished in second, but there was a point where he was about 35 seconds behind of Max Verstappen. So that should give you an idea of how far ahead Max Verstappen is in that Red Bull. But anyways, great job to him. A comment that he did mention or say after the race was interesting, where he said, oh, I don't see this happen too often, something along those lines, which was strange because he wins almost every race. So I don't know if he was trying to be humble, but that was not a true fact because that does happen quite often. But anyways, Checo so far seems to be doing good. A lot of people were doubting him last year. I was one of them. I thought that he'd be out of a seat maybe. I thought he was struggling, but I think we have to wait and see how the next few races go to determine what the rest of the season is going to be like for him. But now switching over to Ferrari. So we saw a bit of teammate rivalry. Reminded me a little bit of Monza from 2023. And I kind of enjoyed it. I would say that was probably the best overtake of the race today. And the cars were driving pretty close. At one point I thought that they might touch, but Carlos came out in the front once again like he did in Monza as well. And speaking of Carlos Sainz, he has been experiencing a lot of pressure these past few weeks now. Ever since we found out that Lewis Hamilton's going to be going to Ferrari in 2025, Carlos Sainz is now trying to secure himself a spot with any good team in 2025 because he right now is out of a spot. So, he's experiencing a lot of pressure and he's trying to prove himself to be the better Ferrari driver. And with Charles Leclerc, it's going to be interesting to see how the dynamic between him and Lewis Hamilton comes in 2025. But that's 2025. Right now, let's focus on 2024. So another team I want to talk about is Mercedes. They seem to be struggling. George Russell started in third place and then finished in fifth place, I believe. But Lewis Hamilton just seemed to be struggling. And you could tell that Toto Wolff looked distressed. So I don't think the Mercedes is a great car this year. Might be a repeat of last year, but we might have to wait and see for a few races as well. And this could just possibly be more evidence of why Lewis Hamilton decided to go to Ferrari in 2025, because he knew that the car wasn't going to be improved anytime soon and that his chances of winning an 8th world championship were close to zero with a Mercedes right now. Another team I want to talk about is McLaren. So McLaren probably had the most pressure going into the 2024 season because they finished it off the last season on a pretty high note. They had a few double podiums with Oscar and Lando both being on the podium. Lando Norris, we saw especially a lot of great performances. So coming into this season, everyone's looking at them, trying to see where they compare next to Ferrari, Mercedes, and Red Bull. But this was definitely not the performance they wanted to show for the first race of the season, which is okay because it is the first race, and you have plenty of time to improve. But you do want to start the season off on a strong note, and that's not exactly what happened today. I believe McLaren finished in quali around 8th and 9th or 7th and 8th place, somewhere around there, and then finished up pretty close to it anyway. So I think they're definitely going to be trying to aim for better spots next time in Saudi Arabia. And I think they definitely have their eyes set on being in the top 5 at least. But another team is Alpine that I wanted to talk about. So Alpine seems to be doing worse than they did last year in 2023. I mean, last year they weren't doing so bad with Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly, but today seemed especially rough for them. I believe they both finished in the bottom 5. I may be wrong, but somewhere around there, which is not a good finish for them at all. And then V-Carb, what was that decision that they came out with, like towards the end of the race, where they pulled Yuki Tsunoda back to give that spot to Daniel Ricciardo for nothing to happen with it. I think that their goal with that swap was that Daniel Ricciardo could overtake Kevin Magnussen and then possibly secure some points for himself. But doing it when there's 3 laps left in the race doesn't seem reasonable. And the only thing that really came out of it was a lot of negative comments and some increased tensions between the 2 drivers. I mean, Yuki Tsunoda was quite vocal about it. He, at one point, said that Daniel Ricciardo was driving too slow and needed to go faster. After the race, they also had some negative comments, so I can imagine the tension that must be in the team meeting afterwards. But anyway, that's all I wanted to cover from today's race. There was that incident with Logan Sargent on the first lap, and I believe it involved Nico Hülkenberg. I don't exactly remember. But now taking a look at next race weekend, so we have the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Now, I have some facts open up about it right here. So this is going to be the 4th time that this race is held, as the inaugural race was in 2021. And it is a night race. It is once again going to be on a Saturday, which I don't exactly know if I dislike. I think I like Saturday races. They're kind of interesting. Sunday races, though, are way better. But anyway, so this race is going to be held in Jeddah, I believe, and the circuit length is about 3.836 miles. So that does mean that there's a less number of laps. So there's a total of 50 laps for the race, and the most wins for the constructors does go to Red Bull Racing with 2 wins. So I think we all know how next race weekend is going to play out in terms of who's going to win it, but it's going to be interesting to see who comes in 2nd and 3rd place, because Ferrari seems to be doing a stronger job than they were last year. I think Ferrari is definitely the car that has improved the most out of the Ferrari, Mercedes, and McLaren trio that everybody's got their eyes set on. And then it's going to be interesting to see where Mercedes and McLaren pair up after that, because neither of the teams seems to be doing as good as I had expected coming into 2024. But stay tuned for my next weekend videos, where I will be talking about the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. I'll try to get in 2 videos, and I hope that you guys all have a good weekend until then.